Between 1950 and 1975, American grandmothers served 30 Jell-O desserts at every holiday gathering that cost less than $1 to make. These weren't fancy bakery creations, they were pure survival desserts. Boxes of 15-cent gelatin transformed into whipped clouds, shimmering molds, and layered miracles using nothing but canned fruit, egg whites, and cream. By 1990, every single one had vanished from holiday tables, replaced by store-bought cheesecakes and frozen pies. Let's rediscover these forgotten Jell-O desserts every grandmother served at holidays. Jell-O 1-2-3 created 3 perfect layers from a single pour because the formula contained different density ingredients that separated naturally as it set. Grandmothers mixed 1 box of special gelatin powder with boiling water, poured it into a mold, then walked away while physics did the work. Clear Jell-O settled on the bottom. Creamy custard formed in the middle. Airy foam rose to the top, without any folding, beating, or technique required. The dessert cost 45 cents. And looked like hours of careful layering had happened when it was really just gravity and chemistry. Holiday guests never knew the fancy 3-layer dessert made itself while grandmother watched television. Each serving delivered 3 different textures in 1 spoonful. The product launched in 1969 and became an instant sensation at potlucks. By 1996, General Foods discontinued it. The self-separating magic disappeared forever, because nobody could recreate the formula that made dessert effortless. Church potlucks in the 1960s always featured at least one grandmother carrying a dessert that looked like a kaleidoscope exploded into cream. That dessert was broken glass Jell-O, jewel-toned Jell-O cubes, lime, cherry, orange, suspended in sweetened white cream base, made every slice look like stained glass art. Making it required setting 3 separate flavors of Jell-O until firm, then cutting them into perfect half-inch cubes. Then gently fold those cubes into a mixture of condensed milk, unflavored gelatin, and whipped cream without crushing them. The technique demanded gentle hands and patience, but the result impressed everyone who saw it. The colorful mosaic looked professional and complicated. Each dessert cost 60 cents, 3 boxes of Jell-O at 15 cents each, plus condensed milk and cream. It fed 20 people easily. By 1985, the recipe disappeared. Nobody wanted to dirty 3 separate pans and wait hours between steps when store-bought desserts took 0 effort. Victorian-era grandmothers called it snow pudding because the dessert turned pure white and fluffy, like fresh snowdrifts when lemon Jell-O got folded into stiffly beaten egg whites. The recipe required dissolving 1 box of lemon gelatin in boiling water, cooling it until slightly thickened, then beating it into egg whites that had been whipped to stiff peaks with a rotary beater. The acid from lemon Jell-O stabilized the egg whites and created a texture lighter than mousse, but firmer than meringue. Each spoonful melted on the tongue with barely any chewing required. Grandmothers served it in crystal dishes with a drizzle of custard sauce on top for contrast. The entire dessert cost 35 cents, 1 box of Jell-O at 15 cents, and 3 eggs at 20 cents. It became a staple at ladies' luncheons throughout the 1950s. By 1970, nobody wanted to hand-beat egg whites anymore. Electric mixers existed, but the tradition died anyway when convenience won.
Many of you have been asking where to find these recipes. We've gathered hundreds of them from the Depression era through the 1970s in our cookbook, Grandma's Kitchen. Complete instructions, pro tips in 10 chapters. Link is in the description below. Now, let's get back to the video.
Children called it fish egg dessert because tiny tapioca pearls suspended in cherry or raspberry Jell-O looked exactly like salmon roe floating in red jelly. Grandmothers found the name disgusting, but kept making it anyway, because kids devoured it at birthday parties and holiday dinners. The recipe combined cooked tapioca pearls with prepared Jell-O while both were still warm, then poured the mixture into individual molds to set overnight. The tapioca added chewy texture that made plain Jell-O interesting, and the pearls stayed perfectly suspended throughout, instead of sinking to the bottom. Each bite delivered contrasting sensations, smooth gelatin and bouncy tapioca balls that fascinated children who normally refuse Jell-O. The dessert cost 50 cents total. Tapioca at 25 cents, Jell-O at 15 cents, milk at 10 cents. It appeared at every 1960s potluck in rural communities. By 1980, the name became too unappetizing for modern sensibilities. The recipe vanished from cookbooks despite being perfectly delicious. Day-old angel food cake found redemption in heavenly raspberry whip because grandmothers tore stale cake into chunks, folded them into raspberry Jell-O and whipped cream, then chilled the mixture into a cloud-like dessert. Nothing went to waste in 1950s kitchens. Stale angel food cake was too dry to serve alone, but perfect for absorbing liquid. The process involved dissolving raspberry gelatin in hot water, cooling it slightly, then mixing in torn cake pieces and freshly whipped cream before the Jell-O fully set. The cake soaked up raspberry flavor while maintaining enough structure to create interesting texture. Each spoonful tasted like raspberry cloud, with cake surprise hidden inside. The dessert cost 55 cents. Store-bought angel food remnants at 20 cents, Jell-O at 15 cents, cream at 20 cents. Church ladies served it at Wednesday night suppers throughout the 1960s. By 1975, nobody bought angel food cake anymore. Box cake mixes replaced everything. The recycling dessert tradition died with bakery angel food. 5 forgotten Jell-O desserts down, 25 more to go. These weren't complicated French pastries requiring culinary school training. They were American ingenuity, molded into holiday tradition. Proof that creativity mattered more than expensive ingredients when grandmothers needed to feed crowds on Depression-era budgets that never really ended. Cream cheese transformed ordinary cherry Jell-O into cherry cloud by creating swirls of white throughout deep red gelatin that looked like clouds drifting through a sunset sky. The technique required softening cream cheese to room temperature, then beating it until fluffy, before slowly incorporating partially set cherry Jell-O. Some grandmothers used electric mixers. Most used wooden spoons and elbow grease. The mixture got poured into a mold where it set into a marbled dessert that sliced beautifully. Each piece showed different swirl patterns depending on how much the cook had stirred. The tangy cream cheese balanced the sweet cherry flavor perfectly. Holiday dinners always featured cherry cloud because red and white looked festive on Christmas tables. The dessert cost 45 cents, cherry Jell-O at 15 cents, 1 block of cream cheese at 20 cents, sugar at 10 cents. It appeared in every church cookbook published between 1955 and 1970. By 1985, molded desserts became unfashionable. Cherry cloud disappeared when presentation mattered less than convenience. Cottage cheese might sound like the last ingredient anyone would mix with strawberry Jell-O, but strawberry fluff proved that weird combinations sometimes worked perfectly. The curds suspended throughout pink gelatin created texture that plain Jell-O could never achieve. Grandmothers made it by dissolving strawberry gelatin in boiling water, cooling it until syrupy, then folding in cottage cheese and drained crushed pineapple before refrigerating overnight. The cottage cheese didn't dissolve. It stayed intact as little protein pockets throughout the dessert. Each bite delivered creamy, chewy, and jiggly sensations simultaneously. Midwestern church ladies considered it a salad, despite being pure dessert. They served it on lettuce leaves with mayonnaise on top. That combination sounds horrifying now, but made perfect sense in 1965. The whole dish cost 50 cents. Strawberry Jell-O at 15 cents, cottage cheese at 25 cents, pineapple at 10 cents. By 1990, cottage cheese in dessert became unacceptable. Strawberry fluff vanished when modern palates rejected mixing dairy curds with gelatin. Wartime rationing during World War II created Mother's whipped lime because sugar was scarce and butter was impossible to find, but evaporated milk and Jell-O remained available. Grandmothers discovered that chilled evaporated milk whipped into stiff peaks exactly like heavy cream when beaten long enough with rotary beaters. The technique required patience, arms got tired, but the result was free cream that cost nothing extra. Lime Jell-O got dissolved in less water than usual, cooled until syrupy, then folded into the whipped evaporated milk to create an airy green dessert that stretched precious sugar rations. It tasted lighter than mousse and sweeter than plain Jell-O. Each serving felt luxurious, despite costing only 40 cents total. Lime Jell-O at 15 cents, 1 can of evaporated milk at 25 cents. The recipe survived long after rationing ended because it was genuinely delicious. By 1975, nobody wanted to hand-whip evaporated milk anymore. Electric mixers existed, but traditions died anyway when effort stopped being worthwhile. Seafoam dessert earned its name from the pale green color and bubbly texture that happened when lime Jell-O, cream cheese, and canned pears got blended together until frothy. The recipe appeared in every 1950s church cookbook because it used ingredients every pantry contained. Grandmothers drained canned pear halves, reserving the syrup to mix with lime gelatin. The Jell-O got partially set, then beaten with softened cream cheese until it turned pale and airy like ocean foam. Pear pieces got folded in at the end. The dessert set firm enough to slice, but stayed light enough to feel ethereal. Each bite combined tangy lime, sweet pear, and creamy cheese in perfect balance. Holiday tables always featured seafoam because the pale green looked elegant next to turkey and ham. It cost 55 cents total. Lime Jell-O at 15 cents, canned pears at 30 cents, cream cheese at 10 cents. By 1980, canned pears lost popularity. Seafoam vanished when fresh fruit became expected year-round. Florida citrus groves inspired orange blossom because grandmothers replaced half the water in orange Jell-O with fresh orange juice, then folded in whipped cream to create a dessert that tasted like creamsicles in a mold. The technique required dissolving orange gelatin in boiling water as usual, but substituting cold orange juice for the second cup of liquid to intensify the citrus flavor. The mixture had to cool until slightly thickened before folding in sweetened whipped cream, otherwise the cream would melt. The result was pale orange, smooth, and tasted like frozen orange juice bars without being frozen. Children loved it. Adults appreciated the genuine fruit flavor instead of artificial orange. Each dessert cost 50 cents. Orange Jell-O at 15 cents, fresh orange juice at 20 cents, cream at 15 cents. Church ladies served it at spring luncheons throughout the 1960s because orange felt seasonal and cheerful. By 1985, nobody made molded desserts anymore. Orange blossom disappeared when convenience replaced creativity. 10 Jell-O desserts down, 20 more waiting. Every single one cost less than $1 and fed entire families through holidays when money was tight. These recipes weren't about gourmet cooking. They were about making something beautiful from almost nothing when creativity was cheaper than ingredients. The French technique of Bavarian cream got simplified into American Jell-O form when grandmothers discovered they could skip the custard base entirely and just fold whipped cream into partially set gelatin. Real Bavarian cream required making custard from scratch, with egg yolks, tempering it carefully, then folding in whipped cream and gelatin. That took skill and patience. The American version cheated beautifully. 1 box of any flavored Jell-O dissolved in hot water, cooled until it reached the consistency of raw egg whites, then folded gently into freshly whipped cream. The gelatin stabilized the cream so it wouldn't separate or weep. The cream lightened the Jell-O so it felt luxurious instead of rubbery. Strawberry Bavarian appeared most often at holidays because red looked festive. Lemon Bavarian showed up at spring luncheons. Orange Bavarian came to Thanksgiving dinners. The flavor changed, but the technique stayed identical. Each dessert cost 50 cents regardless of flavor. Jell-O at 15 cents, heavy cream at 25 cents, sugar at 10 cents. The texture rivaled expensive French pastries despite requiring zero professional training. Church ladies served Bavarian cream in crystal stemware to make it look fancier than it actually was. Guests assumed complicated French techniques had happened. Nobody admitted it was just Jell-O and cream stirred together. By 1980, the recipe disappeared from community cookbooks. Frozen Cool Whip replaced fresh whipped cream. But Cool Whip didn't whip the same way. The texture was wrong. Real Bavarian cream died when convenience products couldn't replicate actual cream properly. New England grandmothers who lived near maple sugar houses created maple almond cream by using pure maple syrup instead of sugar to sweeten unflavored gelatin mixed with milk and cream. This wasn't flavored Jell-O from a box. This was plain gelatin transformed into something special using regional ingredients that other parts of the country couldn't access cheaply. The process required dissolving unflavored gelatin in warm milk, stirring in maple syrup until fully incorporated, then folding in whipped cream and toasted sliced almonds before pouring into molds. The maple flavor came through clearly without being overwhelming. The almonds added crunch that contrasted beautifully with smooth cream. Each slice tasted like maple candy in dessert form. Vermont and New Hampshire families served it at holiday dinners throughout late winter, when maple syrup production was fresh. It became a point of regional pride. City relatives who visited always asked for the recipe, then discovered maple syrup cost 3 times as much in grocery stores compared to buying directly from sugar houses. The dessert cost 60 cents to make using local syrup. Unflavored gelatin at 15 cents, milk at 10 cents, cream at 15 cents, maple syrup at 15 cents, almonds at 5 cents. By 1975, corn syrup replaced pure maple in most American kitchens because it was cheaper. Maple almond cream disappeared when authentic maple syrup became a luxury ingredient instead of a pantry staple. Regional desserts died when ingredients stopped being local. Adults-only desserts emerged in the 1950s when grandmothers started adding instant coffee to unflavored gelatin and cream to create coffee cream Jell-O that children hated and grown-ups loved. The bitterness of coffee, combined with sweetened cream, produced a dessert that tasted sophisticated instead of childish. Making it required dissolving instant coffee granules and unflavored gelatin in boiling water, adding sugar to balance the bitterness, then folding in whipped cream once the mixture cooled to room temperature. The coffee flavor stayed strong, not subtle, not hint of mocha, full coffee taste in every bite. Bridge club ladies served it at afternoon card games because it paired perfectly with gossip and cigarettes. The dessert provided caffeine and sugar simultaneously, energy in a molded form. Each serving delivered the equivalent of half a cup of coffee plus cream. Some grandmothers spiked it with brandy for evening gatherings. Most kept it alcohol-free for church functions. The recipe cost 45 cents total. Instant coffee at 15 cents, unflavored gelatin at 10 cents, cream at 15 cents, sugar at 5 cents. It fed 12 people easily when cut into small squares. By 1985, coffee-flavored desserts fell out of fashion. Tiramisu eventually brought coffee back to dessert menus. But that was expensive Italian restaurant food. Nobody made coffee cream Jell-O at home anymore. The adults-only molded dessert tradition died when casual entertaining stopped being formal enough to require special grown-up treats. Fancy French names made simple Jell-O desserts sound elegant when grandmothers served raspberry chantilly at ladies' luncheons and pretended they'd studied European pastry techniques. Chantilly just meant sweetened whipped cream. That's it. Nothing complicated. But calling it raspberry chantilly instead of raspberry Jell-O whip made it sound like something from a Paris bakery instead of a Nebraska kitchen. The preparation involved dissolving raspberry gelatin in less water than the package directed to make it more concentrated, cooling it until syrupy, then folding in chantilly cream, which was just heavy cream whipped with vanilla and sugar. The reduced water ratio kept the raspberry flavor intense instead of diluted. The whipped cream lightened the texture without weakening the taste. Fresh raspberries got folded in at the end when they were in season. Frozen raspberries worked during winter. Canned raspberries were acceptable but not preferred. Thanksgiving leftovers got transformed into cranberry fluff the day after the holiday, when grandmothers mixed leftover cranberry sauce with raspberry or cranberry Jell-O and Cool Whip to create a dessert that used up extras before they spoiled. Nothing went to waste in households that remembered the Depression. Leftover cranberry sauce sat in the refrigerator, looking gelatinous and unappetizing, until someone got creative. The solution was dissolving Jell-O in hot water, stirring in the cranberry sauce while both were still warm, then folding in Cool Whip once the mixture cooled to room temperature. The cranberry sauce added tartness and texture. The Jell-O provided structure. The Cool Whip contributed creaminess without requiring actual whipping. The result tasted like cranberry cloud, light, fluffy, and genuinely delicious despite being made from leftovers. Halfway through 30 forgotten Jell-O desserts. Notice the pattern yet? Every single recipe cost less than $1. Everyone fed crowds. Everyone disappeared when convenience replaced creativity, and nobody had time to fold whipped cream into partially set gelatin while watching the clock carefully anymore. Canned pineapple chunks suspended in vanilla Bavarian cream created Pineapple Bavarian, a dessert that tasted tropical despite being made in landlocked states during winter when fresh pineapple didn't exist. The canned variety worked perfectly because the packing syrup added extra sweetness and the chunks stayed firm enough to maintain their shape throughout the gelatin. Grandmothers drained the pineapple carefully, reserving the syrup to use as part of the liquid for dissolving unflavored gelatin. The gelatin mixture got cooled until slightly thickened, then folded into freshly whipped cream along with the pineapple chunks. Vanilla extract enhanced the tropical flavor. Some cooks added a splash of rum for adult gatherings. Most kept it alcohol-free for family dinners. The dessert set into a pale yellow cream studded with golden pineapple pieces. Each slice looked sunny and cheerful, perfect for brightening winter holiday tables when everything else was brown and beige. The contrast between smooth cream and juicy pineapple made every bite interesting. It cost 50 cents total. Canned pineapple at 25 cents, unflavored gelatin at 10 cents, cream at 15 cents. Depression-era grandmothers discovered that evaporated milk whipped into peaks exactly like heavy cream when chilled overnight and beaten with a rotary beater, creating Jell-O whip parfait that cost almost nothing to make. Regular milk wouldn't whip. Fresh cream was expensive, but evaporated milk did both jobs for a fraction of the cost. The trick required patience and cold. The unopened can went into the refrigerator for at least 12 hours. The mixing bowl and beaters had to be ice cold. Then the evaporated milk got whipped until it tripled in volume and formed stiff peaks. Partially set Jell-O in any flavor got folded in gently. The mixture went into parfait glasses in layers, alternating with additional Jell-O that had been cut into cubes. The result looked fancy, tasted creamy, cost almost nothing. Each parfait delivered multiple textures: smooth whipped milk, firm Jell-O cubes, creamy Jell-O layers. The presentation impressed guests who assumed expensive cream had been used. Nobody admitted it was just evaporated milk beaten long enough. Each serving cost 45 cents for 4 parfaits. 1 can of evaporated milk at 25 cents, Jell-O at 15 cents, sugar at 5 cents. Church ladies served it at Wednesday night suppers throughout the 1940s and 1950s. The recipe survived into the 1960s. By 1975, electric mixers made whipping easy, but nobody wanted to use evaporated milk anymore. Cool Whip existed. Fresh cream became affordable. Jell-O Whip Parfait disappeared when Depression-era substitutions stopped being necessary. Beating egg whites by hand until stiff peaks formed was considered acceptable torture for housewives in the 1950s, which is why lemon snow existed despite requiring 20 minutes of continuous rotary beater action. The dessert combined 2 simple elements, lemon Jell-O and beaten egg whites, into something that tasted far more complicated than the ingredient list suggested. Lemon gelatin got dissolved in boiling water, cooled until it reached the consistency of raw egg whites, then gradually beaten into stiffly whipped egg whites until the mixture turned pale yellow and tripled in volume. The process required strong arms and patience. The rotary beater had to keep moving constantly. Stop for even 30 seconds, and the egg whites would deflate, but the result was worth the effort. Lemon snow had a texture unlike any other dessert, lighter than mousse, firmer than meringue, tangier than lemon pie. Each spoonful melted on the tongue with barely any chewing required. Grandmothers served it in crystal dishes, with custard sauce drizzled on top for contrast. The bright yellow and pale white looked elegant on holiday tables. The entire dessert cost 40 cents. Lemon Jell-O at 15 cents, 3 eggs at 20 cents, sugar at 5 cents. By 1970, nobody wanted to hand-beat egg whites anymore. Electric mixers existed, but even that felt like too much work. Convenience won. Lemon snow disappeared when effort stopped being worthwhile, even if the result was genuinely delicious. Overripe bananas that nobody wanted to eat plain found redemption in Banana Bavarian because the soft fruit folded easily into vanilla Bavarian cream without needing to be mashed or pureed. The technique involved making basic Bavarian cream from unflavored gelatin, milk, cream, and sugar, then folding in sliced bananas that had been tossed with lemon juice to prevent browning. Some grandmothers added vanilla wafers for crunch. Others kept it pure cream and fruit. Either version worked beautifully. The whole dessert cost 55 cents, bananas at 20 cents, unflavored gelatin at 10 cents, milk at 10 cents, cream at 15 cents. It fed 8 people easily when cut into modest squares. Church cookbook committees included Banana Bavarian in every collection published between 1950 and 1975. By 1980, spotted bananas went into banana bread instead. The molded dessert tradition died when baking felt easier than gelatin work. Banana Bavarian vanished when convenience changed what people did with overripe fruit. Cool Whip revolutionized Jell-O desserts in 1967 when grandmothers discovered they could skip whipping cream by hand and just fold partially set orange Jell-O into thawed Cool Whip for instant orange whip. The frozen whipped topping stayed stable without deflating. It never separated or wept. It required zero technique. Just stir and refrigerate. The simplicity changed everything. Dissolve orange Jell-O in hot water. Add cold water. Refrigerate until syrupy. Fold into Cool Whip. Pour into a mold or serving bowl. Chill until firm. Done. Each dessert cost 45 cents. Orange Jell-O at 15 cents. Cool Whip at 30 cents. That was it. 2 ingredients plus water. Church potlucks featured orange whip at nearly every gathering throughout the 1970s and early 1980s. By 1990, it disappeared anyway. Not because it stopped being easy, not because it stopped being delicious, But because molded desserts became unfashionable, Orange Whip died when presentation trends changed and nobody cared about gelatin anymore. 20 forgotten Jell-O desserts finished, 10 more remaining. The pattern holds. Every recipe cost less than $1. Every one required basic pantry ingredients. Every one disappeared when Americans decided homemade desserts took too much time, and store-bought convenience was worth paying extra for. Slicing bananas directly into partially set cherry Jell-O created cherry banana mold, a dessert that looked like suspended fruit art when light shone through the translucent red gelatin. The technique required dissolving cherry Jell-O in boiling water, adding cold water, then refrigerating until the mixture reached the consistency of unbeaten egg whites. That moment was critical. Too liquid, and the bananas would sink to the bottom. Too firm, and the bananas wouldn't incorporate smoothly. The timing had to be exact. Once the Jell-O reached perfect consistency, sliced bananas got folded in gently, then the whole mixture went into a mold to set overnight. The bananas stayed suspended throughout the gelatin instead of clumping at the bottom. Each slice revealed a different pattern of fruit distribution. No two pieces looked identical. That randomness was part of the charm. The dessert tasted sweet, fruity, and refreshing, perfect for summer potlucks when heavy desserts felt oppressive in the heat. Children loved it because they could see the fruit. Adults appreciated that it felt lighter than cake or pie. The whole thing cost 50 cents. Cherry Jell-O at 15 cents, bananas at 20 cents, sugar at 5 cents, cream for topping at 10 cents. Some grandmothers served it plain. Others added a dollop of whipped cream or mayonnaise. Yes, mayonnaise, on top. Modern palates reject that combination entirely. But in 1965, mayo on Jell-O salads was completely normal. Church cookbooks from Iowa, Nebraska, and Kansas featured dozens of Jell-O recipes with mayonnaise toppings. Nobody questioned it. Cherry banana mold appeared at every summer church potluck, every family reunion picnic, every 4th of July gathering throughout the 1960s and early 1970s. The recipe existed in hundreds of community cookbooks published between 1955 and 1975. Then it vanished. By 1980, molded Jell-O desserts started feeling dated. By 1985, they became punchlines in jokes about bad 1950s food. By 1990, nobody under 40 had ever seen a Jell-O mold at a family gathering. Cherry banana mold died not because it tasted bad, it was actually delicious, but because cultural shame around unsophisticated food killed entire categories of desserts that grandmothers had served proudly for decades. Canned apricot halves, arranged in the bottom of a mold, before pouring in vanilla Bavarian cream, created apricot Bavarian, a dessert that looked professionally decorated when unmolded because the fruit pattern appeared on top in perfect geometric arrangement. Grandmothers treated mold design like edible architecture. The fruit placement mattered. Symmetry was important. Each apricot half got positioned deliberately before any cream went in. The planning happened before cooking even started. Some grandmothers sketched patterns on paper first to visualize the final design. Others worked intuitively, trusting their spatial reasoning to create beauty. Either approach worked fine. The Bavarian cream recipe stayed standard. Unflavored gelatin dissolved in warm milk, sugar added for sweetness, then folded into whipped cream once cooled to room temperature. The cream got poured carefully over the arranged apricots without disturbing their position. Then the whole mold went into the refrigerator overnight. Patience was mandatory. Rushing the setting time resulted in cream that hadn't firmed properly. The unmolding process was the moment of truth. The mold got dipped briefly in warm water to loosen the edges. A serving plate went over the top. Then the whole thing got flipped quickly. If something went wrong, the dessert stayed stuck in the mold and had to be scooped out in ugly chunks. Successful unmolding required practice and nerve. Grandmothers who mastered the technique gained neighborhood reputations for their molded desserts. Their creations got requested specifically at potlucks. People asked them to bring that apricot thing to every gathering. The dessert cost 55 cents total. Canned apricots at 30 cents, unflavored gelatin at 10 cents, milk at 5 cents, cream at 10 cents. That 55 cents bought enough dessert to serve 12 people easily. The visual impact far exceeded the ingredient cost. Guests assumed complicated pastry training had created such professional-looking desserts. Nobody admitted it was just canned fruit and cream. The secret stayed safe. Apricot Bavarian appeared in church cookbooks throughout the 1950s and 1960s. By 1985, apricot Bavarian had disappeared entirely from community cookbooks. The tradition died when visual presentation stopped mattering enough to justify the effort required for perfect fruit arrangement and nerve-wracking unmolding. Fresh mint leaves muddled into lime Jell-O with crushed pineapple created pineapple mint whip, a dessert that tasted like mojito in a mold decades before mojitos became trendy cocktails that bartenders charged $12 for. Grandmothers grew mint in kitchen gardens because it was impossible to kill and spread aggressively without any encouragement. That aggressive growth meant free flavoring for desserts. The mint didn't cost anything, just walk outside and pick some. The preparation required bruising fresh mint leaves by crushing them gently, then steeping them in the boiling water before adding lime Jell-O powder. The mint infused into the liquid, creating subtle herbal flavor that complemented lime perfectly. After the Jell-O dissolved completely, the mint leaves got strained out. Nobody wanted to bite into stringy leaves. The mint flavor stayed behind in the liquid. Crushed pineapple, drained very thoroughly, got folded into the mint-lime Jell-O once it cooled to room temperature. Then whipped cream got added for richness. The combination tasted tropical and refreshing simultaneously. Each bite delivered sweet pineapple, tart lime, cool mint, and creamy richness all at once. The flavor complexity impressed guests who expected plain lime Jell-O. Summer church potlucks featured pineapple mint whip regularly because it tasted lighter than heavy cream-based desserts that felt oppressive in the heat. The pale green color looked cool and inviting on buffet tables crowded with brown casseroles and beige salads. The whole dessert cost 55 cents. Lime Jell-O at 15 cents, canned pineapple at 25 cents, cream at 10 cents, mint free from the garden, sugar at 5 cents. That 55 cents served 10 people easily. The recipe disappeared when home gardening stopped being standard practice. Pineapple mint whip required that connection to growing your own herbs. Once that connection broke, the dessert died. Modern versions using mint extract don't taste the same. The bright, fresh, garden-to-table flavor is gone. The dessert survives only in typed recipe cards tucked into community cookbooks published before 1975. Nobody makes it anymore. The mint grows wild in abandoned gardens, spreading across yards where grandmothers once picked leaves for holiday desserts that nobody remembers. Chiffon texture happened when stiffly beaten egg whites got folded into strawberry Jell-O at exactly the right moment. Too early, and the Jell-O would liquefy the whites. Too late, and the mixture would be lumpy, creating strawberry chiffon that felt like eating flavored clouds. The timing required attention and experience. Grandmothers developed instinct for knowing when Jell-O reached perfect consistency. It had to be syrupy and just starting to thicken but not yet firm. That window lasted maybe 15 minutes. Miss it and start over. The egg whites had to be beaten to stiff peaks, the kind that stood straight up when the beater was lifted, but not overbeaten into dry, grainy foam. That also required judgment. Overbeat by 30 seconds and the whites would break. The folding technique mattered too. Rough stirring deflated the whites. Gentle folding preserved the air. The process demanded patience and light hands, but the result was extraordinary. Strawberry chiffon had a texture unlike anything else. lighter than mousse, firmer than meringue. It dissolved on the tongue with barely any chewing. Each spoonful tasted intensely of strawberry while feeling almost weightless. The dessert got served in tall glasses to show off the pale pink color and airy texture. Sometimes fresh strawberries got layered in the bottom for surprise. Sometimes it stayed pure chiffon throughout. Either version worked beautifully. The whole thing cost 50 cents. Strawberry Jell-O at 15 cents. Eggs at 20 cents. Sugar at 10 cents. Fresh berries optional at 5 cents. That 50 cents created enough dessert to serve 8 people generously. Ladies' luncheons featured strawberry chiffon regularly throughout the 1950s and 1960s because it felt elegant, despite being simple ingredients combined with technique. The pale pink color looked feminine and refined. The light texture felt appropriate for afternoon gatherings, where heavy desserts would have been overwhelming. Church women's groups served it at spring teas and garden parties. The recipe appeared in every community cookbook published between 1955 and 1970. Then it disappeared. By 1975, beating egg whites by hand felt like too much work even though electric mixers existed. The timing and technique required attention that busy women didn't want to give. Convenience won. Store-bought angel food cake delivered similar texture without any technique required. Strawberry chiffon died when effort stopped being worthwhile, even if the result was genuinely superior to anything purchased from a bakery. The last generation that learned proper folding technique from their grandmothers stopped teaching their daughters. The knowledge died. The dessert vanished. Nobody under 50 has eaten real strawberry chiffon made with hand-beaten egg whites and carefully timed Jell-O. Lime chiffon delivered the same airy texture as strawberry chiffon, but with tart citrus flavor that cut through heavy holiday meals better than sweet desserts ever could. Grandmothers served it deliberately after rich dinners: turkey with gravy, ham with brown sugar glaze, casseroles loaded with cream and cheese, because the lime brightness cleansed palates and prevented that overstuffed feeling that came from too much heavy food. The preparation followed identical technique to strawberry chiffon. Lime Jell-O dissolved in boiling water, cooled until syrupy, then folded carefully into stiffly beaten egg whites. The timing mattered just as much. The folding technique stayed identical, but the flavor profile changed everything. Lime tasted sophisticated instead of sweet. Adults preferred it. Children usually didn't. That was fine. Not every dessert needed to appeal to kids. Lime chiffon was grown-up food. The pale green color looked elegant on holiday tables. The texture stayed impossibly light and airy. Each spoonful dissolved instantly, without requiring chewing. Guests who had eaten too much dinner could still manage a serving because it felt so insubstantial despite delivering full flavor. Some grandmothers added grated lime zest for extra citrus punch. Others kept it pure Jell-O and egg whites. Both versions worked perfectly. The dessert cost 45 cents total. Lime Jell-O at 15 cents, eggs at 20 cents, sugar at 10 cents. That 45 cents served 8 people easily when portions were modest. Bridge clubs featured lime chiffon regularly because it paired well with coffee and wouldn't ruin anyone's appetite for dinner later. The recipe appeared in spiral-bound community cookbooks published by churches, schools, and women's clubs throughout the 1950s and 1960s. Every single cookbook included at least one chiffon recipe, usually several. The technique died within one generation. By 1980, most women under 30 had never beaten egg whites by hand. By 1985, chiffon desserts had completely vanished from holiday tables. Lime chiffon died, not because it stopped being delicious. It remained objectively superior to any store-bought alternative, but because the technique required learning from someone who already knew how. Once that chain of knowledge broke, the dessert couldn't survive. Skills died with the women who possessed them. 5 more forgotten Jell-O desserts to go. 25 already covered. Every single one cost less than $1, in an era when $1 actually meant something. These weren't just recipes. They were evidence of creativity under constraint, when making something beautiful mattered more than convenience. Summer peach season got extended year-round when grandmothers used canned peach halves in Peach Bavarian, a dessert that tasted like fresh fruit even in January when snow covered the ground and fresh peaches didn't exist anywhere north of Florida. The canning process preserved peaches at peak ripeness. The syrup kept them sweet. The texture stayed firm enough to slice and arrange in decorative patterns. Canned peaches were better than fresh for molded desserts because fresh peaches contained enzymes that prevented gelatin from setting properly. Canned peaches had those enzymes deactivated during processing. They worked perfectly in Bavarian cream without any special treatment required. The technique followed standard Bavarian preparation: flavored gelatin dissolved in warm milk, sugar added for sweetness, cooled to room temperature, then folded into whipped cream. Peach halves got arranged in the bottom of the mold before pouring in the cream. The arrangement mattered. Some grandmothers created flower patterns with peach slices forming petals. Others arranged them in concentric circles for geometric precision. The creativity showed in the final presentation. When unmolded successfully, the peach pattern appeared on top like edible decoration. Each slice revealed different sections of the design. Guests admired the artistry before eating. The flavor combination, vanilla cream and sweet peaches, was classic for good reason. They complemented each other perfectly. Neither overwhelmed the other. The balance felt natural and right. Children loved it because peaches were familiar and unthreatening. Adults appreciated the sophisticated presentation despite simple ingredients. The whole dessert cost 55 cents. Canned peaches at 30 cents, unflavored gelatin at 10 cents, milk at 5 cents, cream at 10 cents. That 55 cents fed 12 people when portions were sensible. Church potlucks featured Peach Bavarian year-round because canned peaches were always available. Summer versions sometimes used fresh peaches despite the enzyme problem. Those required adding extra gelatin to compensate. Most grandmothers didn't bother. Christmas candy canes got crushed with hammers and folded into strawberry Jell-O and Cool Whip to create peppermint fluff, a dessert that appeared on every December holiday table between 1965 and 1980, before vanishing completely when mint chocolate became the dominant Christmas flavor combination. The candy cane crushing was the fun part. Children begged to help. Grandmothers let them. Unwrapped candy canes went into sturdy plastic bags. Hammers or rolling pins smashed them into peppermint gravel. The crushing made satisfying crunching sounds. Kids competed over who could create the finest powder. The smallest pieces dissolved into the Jell-O. The larger chunks stayed intact for textural surprise. Both sizes contributed to the finished dessert. The preparation required dissolving strawberry Jell-O in boiling water, cooling until slightly thickened, then folding in Cool Whip and crushed peppermint simultaneously. The candy canes turned the mixture pale pink with red flecks throughout. The peppermint flavor infused into everything. Each bite tasted like candy canes and strawberries mixed together. The combination worked better than it sounds. Peppermint and strawberry aren't obvious partners, but the freshness of mint complemented the sweetness of strawberries perfectly. The texture stayed creamy from Cool Whip, with occasional crunchy bits from larger candy pieces. That contrast made it interesting. Pure, smooth desserts got boring. Peppermint fluff delivered surprise in every spoonful. The red and white color scheme looked Christmas appropriate, without requiring food coloring or complicated decoration. The festive appearance made it perfect for holiday gatherings. Church Christmas parties served it in punch bowls, with candy cane stirrers. School holiday concerts featured it at refreshment tables. Office Christmas parties included it on dessert spreads. The recipe cost 50 cents total. Strawberry Jell-O at 15 cents, Cool Whip at 20 cents, candy canes at 15 cents. That 50 cents fed 16 people easily when scooped into small portions. The candy canes were key. Not just any peppermint candy worked. Candy canes had specific texture and flavor that made the dessert correct. Substituting soft peppermints or hard peppermint discs changed everything. Canned blueberries stained everything purple when folded into grape Jell-O and whipped cream, creating blueberry whip that looked dramatic on serving platters and tasted like summer, despite being made from preserved fruit in the middle of winter. Fresh blueberries were seasonal and expensive, available maybe 6 weeks per year in regions where they grew wild, completely unavailable in most of the country. Canned blueberries solved that problem. They cost 60 cents per can in 1965, expensive compared to other canned fruits, but worth it for the color and flavor they delivered. The deep purple created visual impact that lighter fruits couldn't match. The preparation required draining canned blueberries thoroughly because excess liquid prevented proper setting. The syrup got discarded or saved for something else. The berries went into partially set grape Jell-O along with whipped cream. Everything got folded together gently to avoid crushing the berries. Mixture turned uniformly purple, dark, rich, impressive purple that looked almost too vibrant to be natural. But it was natural, just concentrated from the canning process. The finished dessert tasted intensely of blueberry, not subtle fruit essence. Full blueberry punch in every bite. The whipped cream mellowed the intensity slightly, but didn't mask it. The texture stayed smooth and creamy, with occasional whole blueberry encounters. Those moments of biting into an intact berry made the dessert interesting. Pure smooth would have been boring. The berry pieces added excitement. Church ladies served blueberry whip at summer potlucks, even though it was made from canned fruit. Nobody cared about the canned versus fresh distinction. Good flavor was good flavor regardless of source. The purple color looked festive next to red Jell-O salads and green lime molds. Buffet tables became rainbow displays of gelatin desserts in every color. Blueberry whip anchored the purple section. The dessert cost 60 cents, the most expensive on this entire list. Canned blueberries at 35 cents, grape Jell-O at 15 cents, cream at 10 cents. That 60 cents fed 10 people when portions were modest. Some grandmothers considered it too expensive for regular family dinners. Valentine's Day demanded pink and red desserts that looked romantic without requiring expensive ingredients, which is exactly what cherry chiffon delivered when grandmothers beat egg whites into stiff peaks and folded them into cherry Jell-O for a dessert that cost 50 cents and fed 12 people easily. The bright red color was perfect for February celebrations. The light texture felt appropriate for a holiday about love rather than gluttony. Nobody wanted heavy chocolate cake weighing them down. Cherry chiffon felt celebratory without being overwhelming. The preparation followed standard chiffon technique. Dissolve cherry Jell-O in boiling water. Cool until syrupy. Fold carefully into stiffly beaten egg whites. Refrigerate until set. The timing mattered. The folding technique mattered. The egg whites had to be beaten properly. All the usual rules applied. But cherry flavor made everything feel special, more festive than lemon, sweeter than lime. The color was the real draw, though. That bright, cheerful, unmistakable red that screamed Valentine's Day without any additional decoration required. Some grandmothers served it in heart-shaped molds. Others used regular bowls. The shape didn't matter as much as the color. Red was enough. The dessert got served at church Valentine's parties, school celebrations, and family dinners throughout February. It appeared at every gathering that needed red desserts. The light texture made it popular with adults who wanted something sweet without feeling stuffed. Children usually preferred chocolate. That was fine. Cherry chiffon was sophisticated. Adult food. The cost stayed low because eggs and Jell-O were cheap, 50 cents total. Cherry Jell-O at 15 cents, eggs at 20 cents, sugar at 15 cents. That was it. 3 ingredients plus water created dessert for 12 people. The return on investment was extraordinary. More expensive desserts delivered less impact. Cherry chiffon looked expensive, tasted refined, and cost almost nothing. The recipe appeared in every community cookbook published between 1950 and 1975. Churches included it in their Valentine's Day sections. Schools sent it home in February recipe exchanges. Grape flavor was the forgotten Jell-O option that nobody talks about when reminiscing about vintage desserts. But Grape Whip appeared at enough church potlucks between 1965 and 1980 to deserve recognition before the recipe disappears completely from living memory. Grape Jell-O existed. Most people don't remember it. The flavor got discontinued in the 1990s when sales dropped too low to justify production. But for 3 decades, it sat on grocery store shelves next to cherry, strawberry, lime, and orange. Grandmothers bought it. Not as often as other flavors, but regularly enough. Grape Whip combined grape Jell-O with grape juice and Cool Whip to create a dessert that tasted intensely of grapes without any actual grapes being involved. The grape juice replaced half the water in the Jell-O preparation. That doubled the grape flavor intensity. Then Cool Whip got folded in once the mixture cooled to room temperature. The whipped topping lightened the texture and mellowed the flavor slightly. But it stayed definitely grape, recognizably grape. Nobody would mistake it for any other fruit. The purple color was distinctive, not as dark as blueberry whip, brighter, more vibrant, almost artificial looking, even though grape juice was the only flavoring. Some people loved it. Others found it too sweet. The grape candy flavor wasn't subtle. It announced itself aggressively. That aggressive sweetness worked for children who liked bold flavors. Adults were more divided. Some found it refreshing. Others thought it tasted like children's medicine or cheap grape soda. The reception was mixed, but enough people liked it to keep the recipe circulating through the 1970s. The dessert cost 55 cents. Grape Jell-O at 15 cents, grape juice at 20 cents, Cool Whip at 20 cents. Standard pricing for whipped Jell-O desserts. Nothing unusual. Church potlucks featured it occasionally, not every week, but often enough that regular attendees recognized it. School cafeterias sometimes served it as dessert. Children either loved it or refused to touch it. No middle ground existed with Grape Whip. By 1985, grape Jell-O became harder to find. By 1990, it was discontinued entirely. Grape Whip died when the primary ingredient stopped existing. Nobody made it with grape juice and unflavored gelatin. That would have required extra steps. The whole point was convenience. Once grape Jell-O disappeared, the dessert went with it. The recipe exists in community cookbooks published before 1985. After that, it vanishes. The last generation that tasted Grape Whip is now in their 50s. Their children never experienced it. Their grandchildren won't even know it existed. Between 1950 and 1990, 30 Jell-O desserts disappeared from American holiday tables without anyone noticing they were gone. These weren't complicated French pastries requiring professional training. They were survival desserts. Proof that creativity mattered more than expensive ingredients when grandmothers needed to feed crowds on budgets that never stretched far enough. Every single recipe cost less than $1. Most cost under 60 cents. They used boxes of 15-cent gelatin, canned fruit at 30 cents, evaporated milk at 25 cents, and cream cheese at 20 cents. Basic pantry staples transformed into molded art through patience and technique that nobody teaches anymore. The recipes died when convenience replaced creativity. When store-bought cheesecakes felt easier than folding whipped cream into partially set Jell-O. When molded desserts became punchlines instead of pride. The knowledge transferred through demonstration. Grandmothers teaching daughters who taught granddaughters. That chain broke in the 1980s. The techniques died with the women who possessed them. Now nobody under 50 remembers eating real Bavarian cream made with hand-beaten egg whites. Nobody under 40 has unmolded a Jell-O dessert successfully. The recipes survive in typed cards tucked into community cookbooks nobody opens. The desserts are gone. The grandmothers who made them are mostly gone too.